Ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bájò, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bájò, Olúwa mi ò dìde ojú ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀.
Ashen's the Ashen Forge.
Hello and welcome to the Ashen Forge. I am Phantom X, joined as always by Diggs and the legendary Neurotoxin. How are y'all doing?
Tired.
You in there doing the thing?
Mm-hmm.
Did you say tired?
Tired because I've been playing Pax Dei nonstop and it's tedious and monotonous.
The last game I worked on just released on Steam. So
Nice.
Sweet.
You want to mention the name so we might
yeah,
check it out?
Guardgrave. Guardgrave is the name of it. It's like Burger Time, but instead you're smashing down coffins and trying to trap the zombies back in. It's
cool.
fun.
Interesting.
Yeah. And it's for $5, it's less than the cost of a burger. So, hold off on an IRL Burger Time and just buy it one time.
It's a platformer?
Yeah, it's like an arcade style. You aren't jumping, but you can fall off ladders and platforms if you want to escape the enemies that way.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, I spent the last 4 days myself getting Thanksgiving, transitioning to
Looking at a different thing.
Christmas. So
Yeah.
all our lights went out today.
Woo. Fun.
Well, AshesOfCreation. This stuff kind of speeds up really quick. The next live stream is what? I don't even know now. Is it? It's the 30th. Yeah. So I don't know what day that is. My head's spin. What would that be?
That
Thursday?
is the Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Thursday.
So I feel like these things come so quick. It's like you kind of get used to Caravan. Oh, now we got Artisanship. So, okay, that's cool. I'm not even sure if we wrapped up Caravans, to be honest, but
Right.
such a central aspect. But yeah, Artisanship's going to be the theme for this week. So I think that's part of what we will talk a little bit about. And as Diggs mentioned, he's been doing some Pax Dei. Neither of us got in, me or Neuro, but we can try to weave some of that in a little bit maybe and try to keep most of it for a Pax Dei show. But
I can tie it into Caravans actually because I was especially focused today trying to make a new armor top to see if that would be different than the one I made yesterday. And I had to gather 500 flax at a time. So the last 2 hours, it took me like 6 hours to make the new top and raise my gear score from 15 to 16, which was not fun once I realized that's all it was going to do. But the last 2.5 hours, I was going out on gathering runs for flax, gathering 500 flax at a time and taking it back to my plot to be processed. And when I was thinking about caravans for that, that's what actually pisses me off about PvP. Because if it's going to take me 2 or 3 hours to gather a bunch of stuff, and then some other player can come over and make it so I have to spend another 2 hours regathering my stuff, that's when I'm going to rage quit. Because it's mostly about my time. It's not actually about that combat. It's that, if combat is only going to cost me 5 minutes or 10 minutes of my time, then that's fine. Let's go ahead and do that, get that over with, and I'll regain my 10 minutes and play another 2 or 3 hours without it. But if it's going to cost me 2 hours of stuff now, with the caravan, I should only be losing a portion of my resources. How much of a portion, I don't know. But that would be a
Do you mean on
factor.
transport of a caravan?
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't the caravan lose
I
everything?
mean, if it gets well, but you can regather some and all kinds of stuff. So
Well,
you
presumably you'd
probably
be dead though. If your caravan lost.
you still can get back to it. There's all kinds of stuff. It depends on a whole bunch of stuff, right? So
Yeah.
so it depends on how much of a portion I'm losing.
No, I would agree. I've been watching some streams of Pax Day, and it just seems incredibly tedious. And I hate to say that because that game also looks amazing, just like Ashes. But watching everyone just try to make a linen string, or what was it, a cloth, some sort of cloth.
Yeah, it's coarse thread. Coarse thread.
Oh my goodness! And needing thousands of flax. It's just like wow.
You know what it reminds me of? Burled wood.
Oh God.
I was out chopping for beech sapwood, and that was reminding me of burled wood.
Oh no. Oh no.
But even the other stuff, like watching them having to chop the wood, and then your stamina bar falling down, and then you got to wait so you can finish chopping the tree. Like you can't even chop one tree in a stamina bar full. Like it goes all the way. Like I don't know if that makes sense. Like it takes multiple stamina bars to just chop one tree down, which I don't know
that. That does IRL make sense. Like if you're just so beefy that you walk up to a tree and be like, all right, 10 swings or less, you're going down. Like
yeah, but at the same time, I guess what's the rationale for making it take long? Because there's no one competing.
Is there ability for people to work together on cutting a tree down?
I don't think that works at all.
Do you tap a tree and then shoot?
And this is all relevant to what's coming up, hopefully with Artisanship too. But
yeah. Well, so for me, I was chopping down the lower tier stuff. I only had a stone axe. So it did not I was able to do multiple trees and not worry about my stamina too much. What was kind of dicey for me is that you chop it so that the tree falls, and then you have to chop down the fallen part of the tree before you actually gather any resources. So it's like you have to basically chop it down twice, which again kind of makes sense in real life, but just from a timing aspect, I just spent some time chopping it down and you really get no resources for that. The resources come when you effectively chop it down the second time, which is okay, but time wise, you're like, I don't know. I want to be doing some more interesting stuff than just chopping trees. But I think that's the thing is a lot of people are interested. Some people are interested in that stuff. Make it as real as possible. And I'd rather just do survival stuff rather than magical stuff. So
I can understand if there is a mini game aspect to it where not only the cutting down process, but the breaking it apart process had different stages to it that can allow you to have different outcomes, like getting higher quality, like longboards and planks versus, if you want to get more like big, wide sections, being able to play the game differently, other sorts of stuff. That might be a nice sort of way to do it, but just to have it be a routine thing that you have to do for each and every tree, unless it's just to make it take that much longer while you're under duress or to just be a time sink, I don't really know that it's exactly necessary. Ashes, I could see it as a time sink as part of that risk factor. Someone hears a tree fall, it's like, oh, there's somebody for me to gank over there. I'll wait for them to process this tree, and then I'll jump out of the bushes and stab them in the butt. So
which begs the question of why you wouldn't do it yourself.
What? Stab.
Just drop down the tree. Just chop down the tree rather than waiting on somebody else.
Because you don't have the crafting skills, you don't have the harvesting skills to get the wood from that tree, and you'll be damned if you're going to trade with this person, because you can instead just run from behind and stab them in the butt and hope that you don't get a logging axe through the forehead.
I will say too, one thing with Ashes, and hopefully we see some of this, my hope, well, we can get onto the artisanship stuff here in a little bit, but watching people run through the world, it looks amazing of Pax Dei, but it's almost like Landmark. And what was your Castles and Crab Shacks?
Castles and Crab Shacks.
Yeah, I love that Ashes is sort of, you have some blueprinted stuff, so it's not necessarily free build mode. Because I was watching, there are some amazing looking mini towns that people put together in a period of time. And then there was a bunch of other stuff that just looked janky as hell, just looked terrible, like running through there and being able to just put stuff down wherever. I guess I was seeing people complain that like you could put a plot down on top of like an iron ore or flax or, resources so other people couldn't get them. Just crazy stuff that makes me a little bit probably leaning towards Ash's model of building up towns, nodes, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of it comes down to what it is that you want to do in your MMO. And I think if what you want to do is build stuff, maybe crafting, then that's one thing. I think if you're wanting more of an RPG, then you're going to want other stuff, more interesting stuff to do besides just that. That's what had me thinking more back to Ashes compared to Pax Day is, do I want to spend 6 hours just gathering and processing? Like, I'd rather have some other stuff to do. That's more fun for me. But again, what's your fun and what's your hook into the game? But even getting back to caravans, like I think having a caravan and how I'm going to manage the caravan would give me more interesting things to do than what was available in Pax Day. I think too, one of the things I was realizing, so that, they haven't fleshed out the combat in Pax Day very much. So I was basically killing the low level animals, bears and not bears. I was running from bears, boars and foxes and badgers. But it was just left click. There was not, a wide variety of skills for combat. Um, and that's the other thing. You want there to be several skills so that it's more interesting, right? So just doing the repeated loop over and over again of doing the same thing, the same exact thing, gathering, 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 and it's always the same thing is not very interesting. So just having some combat, different weapon types, different abilities on your weapons or different, combat skills, at least you're making some different choices, even if it's you think you're just running through your rotation. At least if you're fighting a different type of mob, maybe you're using slightly different strategies or tactics on different behaviors. But it was a kind of interesting comparison with an RPG, this survival game. So
yeah, more than one stream that I watched commented on the idea that they need to add something else to make this interesting. That relying entirely on players. Not sure how that will go.
Oh, this is my other question that I had not thought about. Because we'll be building our own towns and villages and cities in Ashes of Creation, which is awesome, but those come with NPCs, and there'll be different types of NPCs with different node types. There'll be different types of NPCs based on race, and those going to get different quests and different resources. And that's much more interesting, right? I have some idea of why I would want to go to a scientific node versus a religious node or an economic node or a military node, or why I might want to go to a dwarf node versus an elf node. why am I gonna? So we're gonna build these areas in Pax Day, and then what are they gonna offer? Why do I want to go and look at them? I mean, okay, it looks kind of cool, but once I look at it, what do I want to do? Why am I going to be interacting with the people there? That's the part that I could not figure out with Pax Day as I was moving through the world is because I mean, uh, I did go on a dungeon run yesterday and went by the guild's little abbey that they had built, which was awesome to look at. But I didn't run around looking at other people's stuff. I was too focused trying to build my own stations and figure out how to crafting worked. So there wasn't much of a reason for me to go through and look at other people's stuff because they're going to have the same stuff that I have, basically. So that's another plus for having an RPG and something like Ashes. I mean, I can think of reasons why I want to go to these different places, and hopefully, people will be building different crafts. So,
Yeah, I have the same conversations in the Playable Worlds Discord. Some very strong opinions about not having NPCs and just having everything player run, which I think is just I don't know. Until someone proves me wrong, I guess the closest I can think of success of, but Minecraft doesn't even really fall into that. It's like a totally different, as far as pure sandbox.
Survival game? Survival sandbox?
What?
Minecraft?
You can turn survival on and off. It depends. It's whatever you want to do. But my point being is, it is. I would consider it basically a pretty pure sandbox game that's been super successful. But when it comes to the MMO, I just, and I've said this back all when we started with Landmark, like I don't think people want a pure sandbox as much as they think it do. You can have some great builders and you can have some great storytellers, but it's probably going to be super rare that you're going to have someone that can do both. And then you start having teams of people. Okay, are they going to get paid? Like, are they just going to do this all for free? Because game development takes a long time. It takes a lot of work. So what's your monetization for that? You look at Roblox, you can make money from it. People can make
worlds. They did have the player studio stuff where if you make cool stuff, you can put it on the market and other people can buy it.
Mm-hmm.
I did get one bit of something that somebody bought.
Listening to a lot of the comments that I've heard with Pax Day, and there's positive too. There's a lot of positive. The building looks pretty, the game looks great, but this lack of NPCs, this lack of interaction, people are just getting bored. And I don't know how you rely on a players to fill that void in a way that's orderly, that's successful, that's entertaining, especially if there's not a way to pay them for doing it. And that doesn't mean that necessarily, I guess the studio has to pay them directly, but do you have, you look at something like Roblox, I could create a game in there and people can pay, I can make money through that in a way. Now, that's a pretty predatory system, but there's at least a way to pay people to create content for you. That seems to be the Playable Worlds direction. They're going to create their own world, but there's an S on the end of that. And so it sounds like their intention is to let players create other worlds that belong to that universe. But again, I don't, most of the people that are good at this are already making games. They're employed. They're already somewhere else. So I don't know. We'll see. All the more reason I love Ashes. So.
Landmark reminded me more of Valheim in that the mobs that were there, I would go out and interact with those mobs or go into mini dungeon or do some other stuff. Also, it felt like I was hunting. So one of the things that I loved doing was crouching and kind of doing some semi-stealth. And I loved my shield banging people, bouncing people off of my shield, mobs off of my shield while I'm fighting. So yeah, there was even more, and that's what I liked about Landmark too, is I could go up and pick up some weapons fairly quickly, pick up some gear, and based on that gear, I could go out and hunt some mobs. I think there should have been more of that, in Pax Day. I think this alpha was just concentrating on building, I guess, but the crafting was kind of wonky. What did I see? So after I found out that I spent 6 hours just increasing my gear score by one, I was checking out the difference between a tier two uh top a Gambeson, tier two Gambeson, and a tier three Gambeson. And in terms of it was the same thing. So it would have taken me 500 um thousands of flax to make this thing. But the very difference that I could see in terms of crafting from the tier two to the tier three was two extra um cloth pins or something. Yeah, pins. I mean, I would just need to kill one wolf in order to get those two pins. That was the only difference, taking it from a tier two to a tier three. Um, it seems like even if you're going to let people into an alpha, your crafting should make a little bit more sense. Like, I don't
Mhm.
know.
Or at least clarify what systems are good and working and balanced, and which ones are like, yeah, we
Not
put
even
some stuff
close.
in, but it's not like really there. Like it's nice to have that sort of stuff. Tell people what to expect to be working and what to expect not to actually be working.
Don't even try to craft because it's not going to take you anywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, that was
it's
just like Alpha 1 for Ashes, where I would make an item, and once I finish its final complete state and collect it, it reverts to all of its base resources, and I have to start from scratch to attempt it. But I'm just doing this, little Sisyphus act there, trying to make it, and then as soon as I've made it, it's broken down to resources again. There's not really any like skill to build up for it. That was pretty annoying. It was until maybe like the last little bit of Alpha 1 that I think you could actually complete an item and keep it. Maybe consumables were a little different, but weapons and armor stuff were definitely borked at the start.
Yeah, so it was a good comparison. It was kind of fun trying to compare Pax Day with, you know, what I would look forward to in Ashes, or what I would think I would want from an RPG, an MMORPG, versus whatever Pax Day is hoping
Hmm.
they will be. And so, like what Phantom X is saying, for me, it would at least have to be a theme box. Doesn't necessarily have to be a theme park, but at least some kind of uh, proprietary stuff coming from the NPCs and storyline coming from the devs. Not everything. There can be some sandbox elements to it, but um,
It
And
makes me
the,
I want
wonder if people are just supposed to like go out and find lore and books and stuff like that and chase all of those, and all the time spent trying to build and craft and all of that is actually a waste of time, because you're really supposed to get your gear up in the field and chase quests and that sort of stuff. So if that's the intent, it doesn't sound like, again, it doesn't sound like they're communicating that either.
I will say,
I mean, it's alpha. It's alpha, so we don't know.
yeah, and I will say the PVE side, because they were, it seemed a much quicker way to get stuff, although it's random, but like dropping full iron bars and stuff rather than having to go mine it and smelt it seemed much faster. It's much easier. And we can move on to away from this, but for those who don't know what we're talking, so Pax Day is in alpha state. It did just basically had building and crafting. There's really no there's some comment, but it's placeholder. The NPC part that we're talking about, though, is not because it's an alpha. That is something they do not plan to have in Pax Day. When we say NPCs, there'll be monsters to kill, but there will not be your sort of traditional townsfolk that you get quests from and talk to and stuff like that. So
And get your resources from, trade gear with,
Yeah.
Buy
Players
gear off of, buy food off of, all that stuff. Yeah.
Players are expected to fill that and themselves. So, but this is a good transition to artisanship. The artisanship preview seems like a very broad topic since that encompasses really harvesting, processing, crafting. So a lot of possibilities here. My first question to you two is sort of, what do you expect? What do you think they're going to actually show us?
I think they're going to show us a system that is more mechanical, go out, take risks for the harvesters, that the processors will have even less risk and be even more just mechanical, sit around in town, wait for your resource people to come through and mash resources into things, and that the crafters at the top level are the ones that are going to have the fun making the finished products, doing the this and that and the finishing touches, putting in their custom orders for certain parts and certain materials. That I get the feeling that the fewer group of crafters in a group of players are going to be more the conductors, where the harvesters and the gatherers are the band, and I guess the dangerous no net circus act that's going out every day. Maybe they do a good job and they're able to do it quick and they come back with the goods, and maybe they fall without a net and lose everything. So that's the part that I'm kind of worried about with the system, is that the act of being a gatherer or a processor is more mechanical and economic and is much less fun.
I think this is one of those where I hope it will be more slideshow than uh, actually seeing them in the world doing stuff. I'd rather know more about each section and what falls under what and what the possibilities are than actually see them doing it. So lots of slideshow would be good for me because I'm more about the info than um, I really don't even understand the basics very well. Um, I don't care about the user interface very much at this point.
It is definitely extremely complicated when you really start getting into some of the aspects of freeholds and town building and nodes. Only thing I raised my eyebrow at that just because I'd rather see stuff that they've actually finished rather than the stuff that's theoretical. I'm kind of tired of the theoretical, this is what we want to do. Would love to see. My thought is, since it is an all-encompassing artisanship, there's two things that I would love to see. One is from start to finish. Group go out and harvest some stuff. They bring it to a freehold that gets processed, hand it off to somebody to process it. That person then hands it off to someone else to craft. I would like to see that entire loop. Maybe with PvP, that we won't get PvP, I'm sure. But I would like to see that loop. The other thing that I hope they show off a little bit is this whole sort of nebulous active crafting that Steven mentioned way back in his, I think that was the Reddit AMA, right? Like way back, a ways back, where they mentioned there would be active crafting, and we've seen nothing from it. The UI we have seen has just been the sort of click and be done with it sort of stuff. So I would love to see those two things.
See the animal husbandry loop, like taming,
That would
and
be
then
nice.
the processing version, and then I don't know, is breeding the crafting version? I don't know.
That's an interesting question. That would be fun to see for sure. Or starting a farm, corn, and all of that. My guess is we do not see that, because my guess is they do not have a lot of that set to go. I assume this will be a very simple, let's build a sword.
Now that you said it, I'm actually dreading it's the opposite, that all they have to show is the animal husbandry demo, and they don't have anything else that they can actually show us in full.
You want to see him milking a cow? Actually, didn't he do that on the freehold?
I think so.
Yeah. So what we did not see there was actually processing stuff.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, well, they've already got that part, so, turn it into cheese, and then, I don't know, make that cheese into a pizza sandal.
It is exciting. I think this is showing us just how close at least spot testing is, for sure, that they're doing the artisanship. That was something when we interviewed Stephen way back, like probably the first, I don't know, he mentioned that that would be a go for Alpha 2. So their whole crafting process. Don't think it'll happen this year. Actually, he did put in Discord they're going to have 2 weeks off or something at the last half of December, I think he said.
Nice.
So doubt they'll be running any sort of testing during that time frame.
No.
Have we been on since Extra Life? They did a pretty good job this year too. Was it 30,000? How much did they raise?
I'd have to go back. It was a lot though.
Yeah,
I think towards the end it was around 30,000, 35,000. But yeah. That's good that they're going to have 2 weeks off, I think. I was going to say,
in general.
I'm
go ahead.
hoping to see Tolnar sometime when I'm thinking about stuff I would like to see for a stream, because it seems like forever since we've gotten any robust, even concept art for it, other than head.
Yeah, there's been chatter on Discord with that too, and Steven actually mentioned on Discord. I'd have to go back to see exactly when that he did make a comment that they are not currently working on the Tolnar.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
Because the debate was, will it be in at the start of A2 or will it be later in Alpha 2? And so the assumption is it would be probably later. Because actually you get cited on this debate that happens occasionally, because you ask the question of Steven, when will we see the Tolnar? And people are misconstruing. He told you next year, and so people hear Alpha 2 is next year, and they're saying, oh, that means Tolnar. In their mind, Tolnar is going to be available at the start of Alpha 2, which is not what that means. Which also might give us a little bit of an idea of when Alpha 2 will start. That would suggest it's earlier in the year than later in the year, but.
I just kind of would like to see some more concept art, full body concept art. I don't need to see them in the game yet. I'm still waiting to see Nakua in the game.
We saw Nakua in the game. We don't have Dunir yet.
No, because they changed it, so we have Dunir, right?
I thought they said initially. I thought they had said they just turned the old Dunir into Nakua.
No, they have
they've
models
reworked
for
everything.
both.
Yeah, they have.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be nice. I would imagine it's gonna start Kalar Valoon. No, not even Valoon. It's gonna be Kalar, Dunir, and probably Empyrean.
Actually, what I really, 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 really want to see is just in game. I would like to see the Dunir model in the game with a Kalar model or Empyrean model, just so I can get a idea of how small the Dunir are.
Also, I want to see what their jump looks like.
Exactly. The Dunir flip.
Oh, these are things that I don't know what takes so long, but we did see. Was it the last one of either this last pack, shot pack, or the one before? I think somebody spotted what appeared to be Tolnar feet in one of the items.
Funny.
Yeah, but no face, because I think that's actually what he also commented. They had been working still on the slider portion, which I imagine is pretty difficult to pull off. So, but yeah, artisanship. So it'll be interesting. You know, one of the things we don't really talk about, we talk about the Tolnar in terms of kind of magic and stuff coming back, but you know, will there be differences in crafting and the artisanship side, since they have been separated for so long? Be kind of curious.
So what kind of differences would you expect there to be?
I mean, have they just learned, you know, things progress, technology advances different ways. You know, you look Stone Age and then Iron Age and all these things, you know, we're in the computer age, like over time, things just gradually improve. And so they have been separated from everyone that has come back. So I would assume they would each learn their own way of doing things differently over that period of time. Of course, that could be probably just incredibly too complex to implement into a game. And it would just be easier to say, oh, hey, we can all make a sword the same way. But I think it would be neat if there was at least a little bit of flavor in the fact that these two groups were separated for so long and kind of how they go about doing things.
I'd gotten the impression that the Tolnar were kind of surviving on minimal resources and supplies, dwindling amount over time. So that would be the other reason why I'd wonder what sorts of technology and tools and stuff are they making things out of metal? Are they making things out of stone and like, you know, fancy hard fungus with some sort of natural epoxy? You know, what sort of things are they making their things out of? Because that could be what it is that you're able to work with completely different types of materials that grow underground. And so if you're, you know, a surface dweller and you want to start working with those materials, you better start making friends with Tolnar.
Yeah, I think it would be biome related underrealm materials and resources. That would be the difference, because we're all getting stuff from Vera now. It's not like we have a supply coming in from Sanctus.
Yeah, but like, is there an underground metal or rock or some sort of mineral that they have mastered and they know much better than we do? Right. And so does it confer some sort of special advantage against certain, you know, underrealm monsters?
Again, we should expect their biome to have specific resources. Yeah.
So
the plants and animals and stuff down there, I'd imagine, are going to be distinctly different too.
Mm-hmm.
What a fishing hole in the underrealm is going to look like.
Yeah, I guess I hope
a lot of pale and translucent stuff.
Mm-hmm. Bioluminescent is what I was thinking about.
Because I would like to see. I'm very big into the lore. That's also what I'm waiting for Pax Dei. Is just to actually get into their lore too. But you know, hopefully there's not this big old backstory that's been woven about, you know, having to leave Vera and go to Sanctus and the Tolnar getting left behind. And then we start playing the game and it's like, oh, well, that's a story in a book. Like, hopefully there are actual differences in the game that we are currently playing in that are not just visual, but also you know, in terms of use, you know, that there is a difference between these two people. And I mean, to learn to kind of get back to living together.
You know, one of the things I complain about is always having the humans as the default for what we're shown. And even thinking about this aspect, Phantom, is what does farming and animal husbandry look like in the underrealm versus above ground?
Yeah.
I mean, Nero asks us what would be fishing, but what would a garden look like? What
Yeah,
are our gardens going to look like in the underrealm?
Your garden's made of booty mushrooms, and your what's it called? Livestock is made of booty mushrooms, and your
Nails.
animal husbandry is made of booty mushrooms. It's basically all booty mushrooms.
They did have lots of mushrooms in those caves during Alpha 1, that's for sure.
Well, because I mean, it's a great question because, and I don't know how many resources they're actually able to invest in all of this stuff, but presumably they would have brought, we'll just say cattle. I mean, they could have, who knows what Vera would have had. We'll say cows or goats or something that they were able to escape with some of those. So how did those change over time? We know that the Tolnar came to be, like exactly what you're saying is like, how do they farm? Like, what did their animals become?
Well, their animals became themselves, so they're farming something else probably.
Yeah, I've just seen how that has changed as well. I don't know. I just hope it's not just a little bit of a book or something you get in a quest NPC that mentions it. I hope you can actually see it and be a part of that change.
Hell, for all we know, we bring all the cattle across because all the cattle that was left behind got turned into minotaurs and such.
And Tolnar.
Well, I'm curious to see, hopefully they answer this, how many artisanships, how many of them are actually going to be in Alpha 2? Are we going to have everything? Is it going to be a limited amount? Are we going to have fishing and herbalism? We've seen them cutting things down. We've seen them mining, lumberjacking. We've seen them mining. But we've not actually seen a lot of these other things yet.
I suppose the question for me is both which ones are we actually going to see at the start? And of the ones that we're going to see at the start, how fleshed out are they going to be?
Yeah.
Which is kind of why I would want to know more from a slideshow than them actually showing what's ready now. But
yeah, but I don't know. I'm at a point of like put up or shut up. Like I'm just sort of, although I think I waver. It's probably like this time every year. You get towards the end of the year and it's like, all right, I'm kind of getting tired of this. And then, February, March rolls around and there's something shiny. It's like, okay, cool. We'll keep going. I mean, my hope is there's a good amount that we get to see and start testing. As far as some of the more basic things, armor making, weaponsmithing, or armor smithing. Some of the things that players will actually use pretty regularly, and cooking and all of that. Did we see did they actually farm? Like, did we watch them plant seeds? Watch them grow? They just kind of went to a freehold that had corn, right?
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
And we're supposed to have influences on like local water. If you're next to a river, you get bonuses, benefits. So I'm just curious how far along of this stuff is or is not. Of course, this is what I'm mostly interested in. Anytime we've ever talked to Stephen, this has been what I ask about is crafting. So there are some complexities. I'm curious to see, when you think back to some of the things we have seen, freeholds, for example, and then also the node development. And when they went through some of those node trees and some of the decisions that the mayors get to make on buildings that get built, that's not just crafting. I don't know if people really paid attention, at least what we've been shown. The node, what the mayor builds in the node also impacts the freehold surrounding it. As far as what level, processing you're allowed to do and what kind of processing you just can do. Because you'll have to get it's not a license. What do they call it? Or is it a license?
Maybe it is a license.
Yeah, because you'll have to process higher things. You have to get, it's like a license or something. But all of that's directly impacted by your node. And so my initial thought on a freehold, right, was like I could just go out and just start building shit. Like I yeah, I'll have to get blueprints and I'll have to, do X, Y, or Z, but there would be some autonomy in what you get to do. And that's really not the case. A lot of this will be dictated by who's running your node, as far as what you'll be able to process. Because I don't think it will be as simple as, hey, I want to go farm, so this freehold, I'm going to farm. If your node mayor has not set things up in a way that allows you to do that, you'll be very limited in what you can choose. And so it's just very interesting because I'm in my head trying to think who's going to have the hardest time here, right? Because you have the harvesting people that can get killed and their stuff taken, or you can have the processors that are really at the whim of whoever their mayor is. And you can still get killed on your freehold while you're doing stuff. Or is it the crafters that are going to obviously have to now be reliant on the processors? I mean, it's just so complex. I guess that's what I'm getting at. There's just so many levels here of, it's not so simple. I think back to like the very early EverQuest days, like you knew what was in Keleth and you knew what was in Keynotes. Like you kind of knew where things were. And this, it's going to be very unclear. Hopefully there'll be some sort of UI or ability to actually see what specific areas do have, because it's going to get interesting how complex this will be.
Well, because that's going to change. What's in an area is going to change based on the stage of the node, and it's also going to change based on not only the biome, but the season of the year and how weather is affecting all that. So you won't have the same exact resources during winter that you have in spring.
Yep. Summer mountain ice. Get your summer mountain ice.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I don't know, maybe a spreadsheet is what we need, because there's just so many levels. And what's interesting is that a lot of this, or what I've just mentioned, wasn't like directly commented on. It was just paying extra attention to Stephen moving the mouse over stuff. And, what was the text that he hovered over?
So that's why I want to see end game stuff rather than slideshow stuff, is so we can see what's in the game right now. Right now, it's still subject to change, but what's there right now that we haven't heard about? Yeah, but there's all kinds of things, right? Because just thinking about how things are changing, that makes me wonder about the motivation to siege when you have the Talnar coming above ground and creating an above ground metro, and now you've got all these weird food sources and snails running around on the ground, and that's not what you want to eat, or that's not what you want to use for your materials. You don't want to be making Talnar looking swords and shields. You don't want a snail shell for a shield. You want other stuff, and suddenly you've got snails crawling around above ground. Who wants that? And oozes and, icky stuff like that. Those fucking mushrooms start running around above ground instead of below ground.
Sounds like all that stuff makes great consumables, though.
Mm-hmm.
All of this seems really set up to the benefit of large guilds, really. When you think about the coordination that's going to be needed to actually create, a crafting process that kind of pumps stuff out and keeps an economy going. Like it's going to be it's going to take quite a bit of effort to getting all of this running in any way that would be efficient. So we'll see.
Small guilds can form alliances. It's okay. It doesn't have to be a large guild. You can.
And I just hope there is some way of showing us all of this on the game and UI somehow to make it much easier to understand what you're getting into. Do I really want a freehold here?
Spiders jumping on Nero's head. does not look good.
That's better than flies buzzing around my head.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's about 10 minutes left. I did pull some questions that were from the forums. I've been trying to pull
those.
Yeah, I've been trying to pull some that, or look at some that were more related to artisanship. And there are a couple here. One was, are there going to be account-wide shared recipes? If in case I learn a recipe, would I be able to have it in an alt of mine? My immediate reaction is, no, I don't want that.
Probably not. No.
Like that would seem to completely upend kind of your main motivation for PvP and world change. Like if you can just have all your alts doing these things. This was another one, and I don't know, Diggs, if you're going to are you going to play Season of Discovery? Do you do Classic at all? You just do regular retail, don't you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Season of Discovery starts in 4 days, and their leveling system is different. So you can only level, I think, initially to 25, and they're going to slowly raise the cap over time. And so one of these questions was related to that, reflecting on the strategy of WoW Season of Discovery. Would it be a potential for Ashes, rather than releasing 0 to 60 at launch, to slow down the speed run? This is Pockets, who just, there you are. That's you. To slow down the speedrun mentality and break up the level caps, or perhaps keeping level gains behind a node progression in some way. That's right. That is asked by Pockets, who's in chat. I think it's a great question. This kind of goes back to what I talk about a lot with character levels. I think are just obsolete at this point. I know Diggs will argue with me on that point from an RPG perspective, but I like this idea of putting a cap on.
Yeah, especially after playing Pax Dei. I'm even more for levels for an RPG. I mean, I don't know why we would have to be worried about, why would we need to be worried about, um, the, level cap?
I think it's just to erase that rush mentality. Now, I guess the unique part here, but this was the second part of that question, was that you could get to level 60, but not have a node that's leveled to a point where you can actually do much of anything with it. But I think that's part of, but I think that was the second half of that question, was gatekeeping level gains behind node progression in some way. So that kind of fits in there. I don't know. Just I don't know if it's an element of fairness I don't know. The Season of Discovery part will be nice because you'll actually be able to participate in a lot of the end game content that you might not as a more casual player, because there will be an artificial cap that will slowly go up. So I think in Pockets in chat, I don't know what the main motivation is. Well, he says I feel the cap is too forced, so the node progression I think is the best route. But I don't know if this is an attempt to get everyone to be able to experience things equally. I don't know. I do like this idea though, because I just at my core think character levels shouldn't exist anyways. I don't know. All right, we can move on to the next one.
I mean, it's either that or just make things scale players who are deficient up in such a way that they can participate in higher level stuff, so the level cap doesn't actually matter that much.
Well, I mean, it's not a very good comparison because, I mean, WoW only has really your adventurer level that you're dealing with, and in Ashes, that is completely driven by the stages of the nodes. So your level cap is not going to matter as much just in terms of available content. um, as much as stages of the nodes, what races are controlling those probably. Um, and then you've got your other forms of progression, social organization progression. You've got your religious progression, all these different types of progression paths besides just your adventure level. So, I mean, just capping your adventure level doesn't necessarily mean very much in Ashes. There's, it doesn't mean that you're at the end game.
No, especially since he said the whole thing about 50% of your end game power is coming from your gear and the other half is coming from your class, that it switches from being 90% from your class and about 10% from your gear to about 50-50. So it's you get all the way to max level and then you're starting to actually get the gear to really fill in your build and the way that it's going to work with all of your stuff. So that's I think another nice part of it is that there won't be as much of an emphasis on gearing up until you've hit max level, and so you can spend more time just kind of enjoying the leveling process and working on all the things you're going to along the way. I get the feeling you'll be able to hit max crafter or artisan level before you hit max adventuring level. If you work more, if you really work diligently at it, you wouldn't be able to get to max artisan level and be level 1. Like I think Stephen might have even said when we had asked about it that you will get the experience along the way from your crafting that will bump your adventuring level. But yeah, it is that it would be potentially possible to not be max level by the time you finished out an artisan level. You might still want to get leveled up with your adventuring so you can survive the raids and dungeons where you'll find the better blueprints. Or not. I mean, Diggs the character is Pacifist Diggs going to be an artisan of any kind
In what?
in Ashes?
No, I'm not doing any progression in Ashes. Just exploring. So,
Just exploring.
mhm. Being an artisan means you have to get resources somehow.
Sorry, I'm too deep into chat right now.
So we have next question.
All right, I thought this was a good question too. So will there be artisanship activities that require cooperative crafting? And if so, can you elaborate on that? Especially interested if it is cooperative same time activities. So this question reminded me a lot of Palia.
Who asked that?
Akabear.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was thinking about that as you were talking about stuff earlier. Is cooperative what we might see? That would be a great thing to have mentioned in the live stream if we could, because we have what's the example we have from 7 years ago talking about necromancers? I think it's the necromancers that can summon a golem when they work together. Like if you have enough, they can pull their abilities together and summon a golem. So that would be interesting to see what can happen with multiple artisans working together, whether it's one type of artisan or multiple types of artisans.
I could definitely see different specializations of artisans working together on the same piece of equipment. For example, you might want to be good friends with someone who makes wooden or other material hilts for your the blades that you make in order to actually make completed swords. So Or you might not even be the one who makes the blades. You might just be the one who puts the parts together and puts all the magic wowie zowie on the sword or the axe or whatever's being crafted. So you'd be getting the different parts from the corresponding folks. That wouldn't necessarily be a simultaneous activity. Maybe there are some things I would see, like, I don't know, hanging a door or, you know, digging a hole or something. Maybe something you can get somebody's help with. Maybe banging out a piece of metal in some way. Maybe there's ways that you can combine your metallurgy skills between two people to get a bonus to the quality or output of your, smelting and metal making processes. Yeah, that sort of stuff. Working on splitting logs together, having two people operating a sawmill. It'll be interesting to see what they come up with, what sort of things, if they are going to have anything simultaneous like that. But I can see how there could also be a lot of problems with something synchronous, and so it'd be more likely, getting the different bits and boops from all the various crafters of the different specializations, and then putting it all together to make the complete weapon.
Phantom EverQuest 2. Did you play EverQuest 2?
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That was my choice before WoW.
Yeah, that's what I was
thinking. I would still argue Vanilla Iki 2 is better than Vanilla WoW, but what about it?
The crafting there. So I'm thinking about jewel crafting, and it seems like you would go to a place and they had these little puzzles. So you'd go from station to station, and you'd almost have to run from station to station to get stuff done. Sewing too. I think you'd have to run from station to station to get stuff done. But I'm thinking something like that on a because you'd have to go through a variety of stations. I can't remember how it worked, but you'd have to do like measuring and then cutting and then sewing and all this stuff. There are different stages that you'd have to go through, but they'd all be in the same general area as you go from station to station. And that kind of has me thinking of a freehold where you'd have a variety of stations, but I guess what would it be? Your master processor might be one player, and your master crafter might be the other one, working on the same freehold, but those stations are next to each other. So it's like a what do you call it? It's not a supply chain. It's what's the line that you go through in a factory?
Assembly line.
Assembly line, yeah, kind of like an assembly line. So you just move the item from person to person as you go down, and they do their little specialty thing. It would be interesting. Production line, yeah. That would be kind of interesting if we could get our artisan specialties that way, so that would be a thing that you would want to happen.
Yeah, we've not seen for the processing part, I don't think. When they showed us the mayoral stuff and the buildings, the crafting selections per node, as far as when you upgrade your buildings and you go through that tree that they showed us, get very specific. Like, it's not just like two-hand weapons. It's like two-hand weapons slashing, blunt, like very narrow ways of advancing crafting, which again, I think gets into that just incredibly complex nature of all this. And I wonder if processing will be the same. So it's not enough to just have a bunch of animals on your farm. Like, maybe you have to eventually specialize in cattle or pigs. That does it get that granular as things advance? almost, a lot of that almost seems too much to me. Like if I'm running a farm, I would expect my character to know basically all the animals. The same as if I was a weaponsmith. Like I would expect to be able to produce multiple types of weapons. The idea that I would have to specialize in only a blade or only a mace seems just a little too detailed, but I guess we kind of have to get in and see how this all works. So.
Yeah, I think that sort of becomes a bit of a dilemma. I was thinking about this with Pax Day, and it is reinforced with having Omwa in our chat. Sometimes things get so tedious, they're no longer fun. Um, so um, I don't really want to spend 6 hours working in a game, which is what I felt like I was doing in Pax Day. Um, and you can get a little too detailed in crafting so that it feels more like you're working rather than than
I think that's fair. I mean, I'm somebody that would do spreadsheets and stuff. Like, I don't mind. I did this in No Man's Sky all the time. Like, I'd get out a piece of paper and start calculating what I have to do, all this stuff. But getting that much, watching someone in Pax Day have to go harvest all these things to produce 10, that just was like, wow, this is pretty mind numbing. Like, that it didn't seem to be any fun for that. So anyways, I know we're
there I was thinking about Chronicles of Illyria. Some of the you need to specialize in your pans, you need to specialize, know the right heat temperature and all that stuff. The way they talked about crafting there was super detailed, and I was kind of looking for the fun. It's okay, it's very realistic, but I don't know that super realistic necessarily translates to fun in a game where I'm want it to be kind of quicker and easier and less tedious than in real life. So
still trying to understand the reason for the slow progression in Pax Day. Like, what are they? I guess it's just preventing that rush to building a town. But like, I don't understand why you wouldn't just let people rush to build a town. Like they're the ones creating the content for your game. But anyways, I want to do one more that I thought was interesting before we go. There's actually a couple in here, but this was also on Artisanship, which was from Tiger Blue Eyes. It says, are crafting mats going to cross tiers, i.e. using high-level mats in low-level recipes or low-level mats in high-level recipes? I hope that is the case.
I would hope that there's ways to process and refine what are considered lower level materials into higher level versions, and likewise that some higher level materials you can do simpler, cruder versions. Like there's lots of ways to go from chunks of shiny gold ore to having some form of usable gold. Not all of them are clean and pristine, but I'm pretty sure that ore isn't, remarkably stronger than the ore you're going to be having to break through to get copper, for example. So it makes sense you can mine both. Copper's a little bit easier to work with. You might be able to do some other processes and stuff with it. You might, understand it a little better, less temperamental. So yeah, copper is something you can work with earlier, and then as you skill up, as you get better with your metallurgy, you start learning how to make copper into different alloys, and suddenly your tier 1 copper is starting to swing in like tier 3, tier 4 range of quality. Meanwhile, the gold that you used to only make, tier 1 crude stuff that could be used for like crappy jewelry, you're now actually higher skill with it, and you're producing its proper, tier 3, tier 4 quality. Possibly as you skill up, you'll even be able to get a tier 5 out of just normal ass gold that you used to only make, you know, mashed up foil with, essentially. So that's the sort of thing I'd like to see, is materials at all levels being useful, but if it's a higher quality material, you're going to have the skills to be able to work it and make it as high quality as possible, which means not just refining it, but also being able to make high quality alloys with it.
How do you assess the quality of items? And yeah, can you be known for making low quality crap? Like maybe it has some really cool spell effects, but you're great at the enchanting part that puts the spell on there, so you can use the spell, but you use tin in your alloy, so it has a chance of breaking spectacularly, or
Yeah,
um,
could be lower
it might
durability.
you know, you
Could
know.
be that it's a lower level requirement to get into it.
Hmm.
It's like, all right, yeah, here, kid, here's a tinfoil bracelet. You know, make sure you repair it frequently.
Yeah. Golf says Diggs the clumsy carpenter.
I mean, I would totally be into that if, like, sure, you can get this spell and you'll be able to use it at level uh 10, but that sword might break. It might explode in your face.
Yeah.
It might electrocute you.
Yeah. I wrap this up, and then I guess we are over. Yeah, I hope they do. Lord of the Rings does this well online. To make a level, I'm just throwing out random numbers, level 60 pie, you still have to have a level 10 pie crust. So you still have to have the things to make that level 10 pie crust, or pay someone else to do it for you. But it just keeps things alive. Like it keeps people going out and getting stuff if they need it. Like, so your zones stay more alive, your areas stay more alive. They don't get dead because there's nothing to do. Your alts have ways of making money. Equally, I'm sure everyone has had that frustrating experience. You create an alt, and I'm going to be a cook, and oh wow, it costs 500 gold to buy the stuff I need off the auction house because no one else collects it because there's no reason to. So then you get people that do, and they charge a lot of money for it. So this I hope they do that. It just is an easy way to keep everyone engaged and things kind of move everyone in together. And I think can further promote the idea of risk versus reward and reasons to go out and get that copper ore instead of the platinum or the gold, because you still need the copper ore to make some part of a weapon. So I hope they do that. But we are 15 minutes over, so we got to start wrapping up here. So as we said, Thursday on the 30th is the live stream for the Artisanship preview. And of course, we will be back here next Sunday. We do want to fit in a Pax Day stream if we can. Lethality and Diggs both did tests, so I would love to pick their brains. And Lethality actually has been in Friends and Family, so he's been testing this for a little bit longer. So he is free to talk about it. So anyways, everybody have a great week. Hopefully your Thanksgiving was good, and we will see you back here next Sunday.
Finish those leftovers. It's getting to eat or toss point.
Yeah, they're already gone for us. See ya.